there's my cat. He's a cute kitty, but he's not supposed to be outside. We gotta bring him inside. He's so cute. Here we go. Okay, bringing the cat inside. There we go. All right. All right. It's good to be here in this live stream right now. I just want to quickly, I told a friend that I would send the link to them to this live stream. So let me just figure out how to send the link to them real quick. Here we go. All right, so I'm gonna quickly send the link to my friend. All right, and here we are. Okay, so it is a new season. It is the season for staying motivated. That's where we're at this season. So first of all, let's see here. So the last season that we just had, I didn't do a live stream for. Because it was just a crazy time of life. And the season was on setting boundaries and living with balance. And so one of the best ways for me to set boundaries and live with balance at the time was to not do a live stream because I had a lot of new things going on in life at the moment, and it was important for me to do those, to focus on what was most important, and the live stream wasn't it. So that's that. But now this season's different. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how I've grown in the areas of boundaries and balance over the last season, and then anyone who's on here can share how they've grown too in the chat. So for me, during the week I'm a high school teacher, and I'm going to be like really honest. One of the things I struggle with, that's part of my life journey, is I struggle with wanting people to like me. I bet a lot of people feel this way. A lot of us, welcome Ahmet. I bet a lot of us probably feel like it's important to us that people like us. So that's something I really, really, really want people to like me. But as a teacher this year, there's a lot of students I'm working with who really struggle. Like, they just haven't been taught. Welcome everyone. So a lot of these students who I'm teaching this year as a high school teacher haven't been taught how to be normal people. like they just really, really struggle with, like, how to be in class, how to not, how to treat other people well, how to respect the rules and things like that. And as a teacher, it's really hard for me because I don't teach math. I teach English. I teach English language arts. And hello, everyone. Hello, all the people. So as a teacher, it's really hard for me this year because in order for the classroom to be a good place where everyone wants to be, I have to lay down rules. And I'm usually kind of a nice teacher. Like, I'm the kind of teacher that just kind of is nice, and I'm not like a real strict teacher. But this year, I have to be stricter in order for the classroom to be a place where everyone can learn. And it's been really, really, really hard for me because it's really important to me that people like me, right? But I've had to learn that in order to enjoy being a teacher, in order for the whole class to learn, I need to be strict with some of the students. And loving them means being okay with them not liking me right now. And yeah, what you said about imagine if a student is watching, I actually feel nervous about that. But I will say this, if any of my students are watching, I can say this, I love the students. I love them very much. And sometimes loving them means being strict, because if I have those boundaries, then we can all learn. And if I don't have strict boundaries with them, everything's chaos and it doesn't work well. And that's been like a really hard lesson for me. So I'd say that's one of the biggest ways I've grown over the last 30 days, over the last month, is I've learned to be okay with people not liking me, if like to prioritize loving them more than them liking me. And that's been a hard lesson for me. I'd love to hear from you guys in the chat. Let me know, how have you grown in the last month or so? How have you grown? Tell me in the chat. Another thing that I would say right now, and like what what if someone throws the desk during English? Yeah, if someone. So what I've learned is I haven't even thrown a desk, so I'm lucky. I have heard of that happening though. But yeah, what I've learned to do is just with students, I'm just really strict. I'm just like, I try to smile, I try to be loving, I try to be kind to everyone. But if someone isn't keeping the expectation, I just ask them to leave. So I just ask people to leave. Thank you for coming out of the closet. I'm not sure what you mean, Marcos. I have not come out of the closet, but my child has. My kids have come out of the closet. I have not come out of the closet. I'm not in the closet. Okay. Yeah, I do have hair, kind of like spiky hair, kind of like Sonic. But yeah, tell me in the chat, in the last 30 days, how have you grown? How have you grown as a person in the last 30 days? That's what I want to hear about in the chat. Another way I've grown over the last 30 days, in addition to learning that it's okay to be a strict teacher, another way I've grown is, how do I say this? I've learned to prioritize making time on the weekend to just relax. Like, I often, in my life, on the weekends, I often just like I work all week and then I try to do work on the weekends too. And I've learned to set boundaries, and especially on Sunday, to just like relax and have fun and do the things I think are fun on weekends so that I can renew and be ready for the week again. That has been really important to me. Another way I've grown is I've learned to, so if all the desks throw their desks, if students throw desks, they go to the principal right away. I have a very good principal who's very supportive to me. Another way I've grown over the last 30 days is I've learned to be really present. I was feeling a lot of stress as a teacher because it just felt like the work is just so hard. I didn't know if I could keep doing it, you know? And I had this experience where I was feeling feeling really stressed out, and I was feeling so stressed out with everything I'm trying to do. And I was like, I don't know if I could, like, being a teacher is hard. I don't know if I can keep doing this. It just feels so hard to be, to have to be so strict all the time. And then one morning I was feeling really agitated, and my wife said something to me, and I kind of got frustrated with her, and I realized it wasn't really about her, it was about me. So I apologized to her and told her I need some space. And I was by myself, and I just asked my body. I said, body, what's going on? Why are you upset? And my body, I felt like something in my body say to me, I'm hurting. And I said, who's hurting you? And that part of my body said, you are. And I said, oh, what am I doing? And it said, you're working me too hard. And I said, what can I do about that? And then I felt something shift inside myself to a state of just like total peace and just being really present, not worrying about the future, not worrying about the past, just being completely in the present with just lots and lots of peace. And it felt so good. And then for the rest of the week, I tried to just go to that place as I did things. And then it just changed me, because instead of being like, oh man, can I keep doing this or not? It didn't matter. I was just totally present. And I live in Oregon, to answer the question in the chat. And what I just said is part of what I want to talk about in live stream today. So today's live stream is about staying motivated. So it's all about, like, how do we, like, say, a lot of times we all start things, but then it's hard to see it through. We have a hard time like keeping that motivation going. And it can be hard to stay motivated to do there's certain things that, like homework or our jobs or work or just different things in our lives. They're like things that we know are good to do, but it's hard to stay motivated doing them. And that is something that I really want to talk about today, is 7 things that'll help us stay motivated. And the first I want to talk about is mindfulness, which is what I just talked about. Mindfulness is living in the present. So if you have a big job you have to do, and you're thinking about all the work it's going to take to finish the whole job, if you think about how much work it's going to take to like do the whole job, then that's overwhelming, right? It's like imagine if you have imagine some big job, like you need to plow a whole field, or you have like a giant paper to write, or in my case, you're thinking about like having to how challenging it can be to teach. You're trying to teach the whole year. You're thinking, how am I going to do this the whole year? How am I going to do this next year, right? When you think that, when you're thinking about the whole job, it's overwhelming. So just focus on what you're doing right now and have joy doing it, right? It's like, it doesn't matter if I can do this next year. It doesn't matter if I can do it next week. What matters is what am I doing right now? Just be in the present moment. And that really helps staying motivated. Because if you're focused on the big picture, then it pulls, like if you're thinking about what am I going to do next week, then part of your energy and your attention is on next week, and you don't have all of it right now. And so if you're focused on right now, you have all your energy right now to do the job at hand. A question I got asked is, what will you do if your son goes to your English class when he goes to the high school you teach at? He does. My son, I teach 6th grade as well as high school, and my son is in my 6th grade task. So that happens right now. And it's really great. He's a really good kid. He does really good work, and he's great to have, and he helps other kids. I'm really glad to have him there. So that's a thing. The next principle that can help us stay motivated is vulnerability. And vulnerability means being okay with not succeeding. Vulnerability means being okay with failing. So like, here's some examples of times where lack of vulnerability makes it hard to be motivated. Like if you're like, say you want to ask someone out on a date, but you're so scared they'll say no that you don't feel motivated to ask, so you never ask. So if you never ask because you're scared they'll say no, well, then you're not motivated to try because of your fear of failing, right? That's lack of vulnerability. If you have vulnerability, then you ask them and you accept the fact they might say no. If you have vulnerability, you try out for the play or for the sports team, even though you might not make it. If you have vulnerability, you try to take a test, or you try to do an assignment, or you try for a certain job, or you do your best to try something even though you might fail. That's vulnerability. That's courage. That's what courage is. Courage isn't the absence of fear. Courage is doing something even though you're afraid. If you don't have fear, you don't have courage. You have to be afraid to have courage, because courage is doing something you're afraid of. And so that's how vulnerability works. Vulnerability means you accept that you might fail and you do it anyways. That's vulnerability. And if you don't have vulnerability, it's hard to be motivated because you're so scared of failure that you don't try and your motivation goes away. So vulnerability and mindfulness are very important for motivation. Another motivation principle is environment, which means you let your environment motivate you. Because we can control our environment, right? Like you can well, to some degree, right? You might be able to pick what kind of music is playing, who you're with, where you're at, like are you inside or outside? Like there's choices we can make about where we do certain activities and with whom we do them, and we can make choices to clean a space up or not. We can move furniture around. When we change our environment, it helps us be motivated or not. Yesterday, sometimes just going outside really helps us become motivated again. I was grading a bunch of papers on Friday, and I was I was just kind of getting tired and just feeling exhausted with the whole process. Then I took a walk outside, mixed up my environment, came back and started again, and then I was good to go. And so changing our environment can help can help change how motivated we feel to do things. Another thing that can motivate us is the principle of rhythm. So rhythm is all about like we get in certain rhythms that just keep us going, right? So like if every single day you eat at noon every day, then you get in a rhythm, and then every day at noon you feel hungry and you're ready to eat, right? So when you get rhythms going, it's like habits you get in that just that keep you going in that rhythm, and that just keeps you doing things just because it's what you're used to, right? That's actually one of the most powerful ones, right? Like so many people in our planet do certain things just out of habit because they just have established that rhythm. And so rhythm can be a really powerful motivator. Another one is curiosity. And if anyone has any questions about any of these, put that in the chat, please. Curiosity meaning that by being curious about things, it helps us move forward with them, right? Like how many people have explored places because they were curious? How many people have tried something out because they were curious? When we're curious about things, it motivates us to give it a shot, to move forward. In fact, curiosity can be actually can help with that fear of failure, because you might say, what if I fail? But the other question is, what if I succeed? That's a form of curiosity. What if it goes really, really well, right? And that can motivate us and keep us going. Another motivational principle is purpose. Think about the purpose behind the activity. Like, what good does it do? What point does it get to? That's really powerful. When we remember the purpose, it's so motivating. In fact, when we're doing things that we don't feel like have a strong sense of purpose, it's very demotivating. At least for me, it's like really hard to want to keep doing it if there's not a strong sense of purpose behind it. And the final one is reward. And reward being what's the positive consequence that'll come from the thing you're doing, and let that motivate you. And sometimes if you combine reward with mindfulness, then the reward becomes like thing in the present moment, right? So like the activity itself can be its own reward because it's just pleasurable to do it, right? Like I really like doing these live streams. I really like in these live streams I do each month, I talk about the principles that make that I feel passionate about. And as I talk about those principles, then just talking about them is so pleasurable to me that it's its own reward to do it. Okay. Next thing I want to talk about is Jesus. I want to talk about the Jewish guy. Jesus lived 2,000 years ago. I want to talk about what he did, that like how he showed these principles. So at the end of Jesus's life, he thank you, Curry. At the end of Jesus's life, he had some tough stuff to do, right? He went to a garden called Gethsemane and he prayed and he said, Father, he said Abba, which means like daddy. He said like, Daddy, I don't really want to do this, but if you want me to, I will. But if there's any other way, I'd rather do that. And then he bled from every pore. An angel came and strengthened him. And then he went and then he got arrested and he got mocked and spit upon and beaten and he got whipped and he got a crown of thorns put on his head and he was put in a cross and he died. But he went through with it all, right? And, at some point in all that, he could have done a few things. He could have said, never mind, I take it all back, right? And they've gotten out of it. Or he could have he could have just died. Like instead of he could have just chosen to die sooner, right? He could, because eventually he said, it is finished, and then he died, right? Implying that before that, Jesus was not a normal human, right? Jesus was unique. He was like half mortal, half human, half mortal, half God. And Jesus could have just used his power to just let himself die sooner before he endured everything he went through, but he kept going for us. Jesus could have, the New Testament implies that Jesus could have had angels, asked angels to come and save him from the pain, but he chose not to. He kept going through it all. And I would suggest that the same motivation principles, the 7 principles I'm talking here, were the principles that helped him go through that for us. For example, environment, right? He had a lot of his environment was actually working against him, right? He had like people beating him. He had people like accusing him of false things. He had all kinds of things in his environment that were like pushing him to stop. But remember, there was an angel that came and strengthened him. That angel was part of was another person, part of his environment that was helping him keep going. And so he had that going for him. There's purpose. I think that might be one of the biggest things with him, is he had a strong sense of purpose. He felt that it was important for him. He knew the purpose of why he was going through all this pain, and he kept doing it because the purpose mattered to him. It was for all of us, so that we could come to this planet and just experience all the hardship and all the pain and all the suffering and all the sin of this planet, and then and get back to him, get out of that situation. Like we could and so he did. He had a strong sense of what that purpose was, and that purpose helped him to continue the suffering, even though it was hard. I personally believe that he also used mindfulness, right? Thank you, Curry. I don't know if you can point. So here's why I believe he used mindfulness, is that he was always talking about mindfulness. Like he would say things like, "Consider the lilies of the field, how they toil not," right? He's saying the lilies don't worry about like how they're going to get food tomorrow. They just are, and they're fine, right? And he would say, "Pray you this day for your daily bread." He didn't say to pray for tomorrow's bread. He said to pray for today's bread. Jesus was really focused on being in the present moment and not worrying about the future, but being in the moment of now, right? And so, and I think what you just shared, Curry, is an example of that. You said, "But blessed is the one who trusts in the Lord, whose confidence is in him. They will be like a tree planted by the water that sends out its roots by the stream. It does not fear when heat comes," right? That's exactly what I'm saying here. When you have mindfulness, you're just in the present moment, trusting, and you don't worry about what's going to happen in the future. You're just in the present moment. And so many of us waste so much of our energy. We waste our energy on thoughts, worrying about what's going to happen, instead of just being where we are now, doing what we're doing now. And when we're just where we are now, doing what we're doing now, then we can feel motivated to do what matters most instead of discouraged by our worries. And when we're motivated to do what matters most, all of our energy gets put into the thing that's most important to do right now. And I think because Jesus taught mindfulness so much, he didn't use the word mindful. He used other words like "consider the lilies of the field" and "pray this day for your daily bread." But when I read the teaching of Jesus, I just read mindfulness all over the place. And I think that's just Jesus had mastered mindfulness perfectly. And so when it was time for him to suffer at the end of his life, he could use mindfulness. He didn't, because if he's suffering, he's thinking, "Man, I'm still going to be suffering in a minute." That would be too much to carry. But he didn't need to do that. He just said, "I just need to suffer now." And he would just be present in his suffering now and didn't worry about what's going to happen in the future. And then he had all his energy now to do that suffering. An example of this from Japan, and there's an old story in Japan about a spiritual leader who was kind of like a spiritual teacher kind of guy. And he went to an archery tournament. And at the tournament, there was the GOAT of archery was there. So there was a guy that was like the best archer, right? He's like the Tiger Woods of archery, or like the Michael Jordan of archery. He's the GOAT of archery. And the archery GOAT, the best, the greatest of all time, he was going up. So he was getting ready to do the tournament and to perform. And the ruler of the whole land invited the spiritual teacher to sit next to him. So the spiritual teacher sat next to the ruler, and they're sitting there and they watched the tournament. And the archer kept missing. He just had he was doing very terrible. Like, he was known for just being the best archer, and he was doing really bad that day. And the ruler turned to the spiritual leader and said, "Why do you think he's doing so bad?" Because, he saw the spiritual leader as a man of wisdom. He said, "He usually shoots really well. Why do you think he's shooting so bad today?" And the spiritual leader thought about it and said, he's putting so much of his energy into wanting to win and focusing on winning that he doesn't have his energy to perform well now. Right? He's so focused on the future. He's so focused on whether or not he'll win in the future that he doesn't have the energy to shoot well in the present. But when we have all energy in the present, we can do just about anything. And I think that helped Jesus to suffer at the end of his life. He had all his energy available to him to do it with. Reward is an interesting one, because the reward principle is that thanks. It is a cool story. The reward principle is the idea, that you do something, you let the reward carry you through, right? And you could say, now you have to be careful with this one though, because you could say that focus on the reward is focus on the future, right? Because you're focused on like, oh man, when I finish this, then I'll get this. You're focused on the future. So if you do reward by itself, it can actually get you through, but it can also orient you on the future so much that it's not necessarily all the best. But when you take reward and combine it with purpose and combine it with mindfulness, and you kind of make them all one thing, then it works, Like, the present moment, when done with purpose, can be its own reward. And I think there is a way, it's a bit of a contradiction, but I think there kind of is a way to be aware of the reward in a way that helps you continue without putting your energy towards the reward. Like, I think when Jesus was atoning for us, he was aware that finishing the work he was doing would provide the reward of helping us all so much, right? It was a selfless kind of thing. He wasn't doing it for himself, he was doing it for us. But there is a reward in that, right? There's the reward of the satisfaction of having served us well. So I think that there is a sense of reward, but I think that you gotta be really careful with reward, because if you're overly focused on the reward, you lose your energy in the present. And so it's important to kind of combine the sense of reward with mindfulness, and there's a way to do that just right. Now, if we look at vulnerability, right, that's an interesting one to think about with Jesus. I have never actually. It's a really interesting one to kind of consider the possibility of, was Jesus open to the idea that he would fail? like was Jesus willing to atone even though he might fail? I would argue, and hear me out on this one, because it might sound weird at first, but I argue that he was, and here's why. If Jesus was overly obsessed with the idea that he had to, that he might fail, and he was scared of failing, that would keep him from doing what he did, because he'd be so scared. Like, there's no way he'd put up with all that suffering if he was scared he might fail, right? I believe that Jesus, because that's how these things work, right? I believe that Jesus was just doing what he knew he needed to do. He was saying things like, "Father, take this from me," or "Daddy, take this from me, if there's any other way, but not my will, but thine be done," right? Like he was realizing how hard it was, and it was shocking for him how hard it was, like the mortal part of him. I believe that the God part of him was just like, the God part of him wasn't, probably just knew everything is okay, but the mortal part of him was, must have had vulnerability, must have been like, I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I'm just going to move forward and I'm going to try. Because if he was so scared of failing, he wouldn't try. And if he was so scared, if he was super scared of failing, that prayer would go like this: Father, this is too hard. I'm stopping. When you're fear of failure, that's what you do. So he must have not been afraid of failure. The curiosity is an interesting one. I don't know whether curiosity helped Jesus atone or not. I guess, though, he was clearly having an experience that was new to him, because he says, new to at least the mortal part of him, because he says, because that prayer where he says, hey, take this from me, shows that this was all like shocking to him, right? So he clearly was encountering something that felt new to him or felt unexpected. And that's kind of the spirit of curiosity. The spirit of curiosity is instead of being scared of the unknown, you're fascinated by the unknown, right? And instead of saying, what if this is awful? Instead of saying, what if I fail? Or what if this doesn't work? You say, what if this saves everyone? And you go forward with it. So that's just some example of how these 7 principles of motivation can make a difference for people. And anyone in the history of the planet who's done anything great and followed through on it, people like Martin Luther King, Gandhi, the great inventors and explorers who discovered important things, the astronauts, any of the people who've done great things that we're blessed by every day now, I'm convinced we're using one or more of these 7 principles to see it through to the end. Because all of them, as they are working, face adversity. And all of them, when they face that adversity, at some point where it must have been like, oh man, is this worth it? Should I keep going? And they did. And I'm convinced that the principles of vulnerability, environment, reward, curiosity, rhythm, purpose, that these principles were what helped them do it, what helped them see it through. And so when you or I are facing something challenging and we're like, man, I don't know if I can keep doing this hard thing, it's really powerful to think about these 7 principles and think, kind of go through them and say, which of these 7 principles will help me today? And if you're forgetting what 7 principles are, just go to 13seasons.org and click on the little button at the top that says the 13 virtues. Click on there and then click on stay motivated, and you can read these 7 principles. They're all written there. But yeah, when we consider these 7, whenever we can use these like a checklist. Like during COVID, I was a teacher during COVID, and during COVID, a lot of students really struggled to stay motivated. They didn't know how to stay motivated. And during that time, when that was happening, those students, I would go over these 7 principles with them. I'd bring these up. I'd show them the list of these 7 principles, talk through them all, and say, which of these principles will help you stay motivated through COVID? And they'd tell me which ones would help them. We'd make a plan. So you can do that. Whenever you're struggling to be motivated, you can go, wait, which of those 7 principles will help me? And go through them and figure out which one to use. And then use it to stay motivated through that thing. Anything we do that's great and worth doing is probably going to have a moment somewhere where we're like, I don't know if I want to keep doing this. Like everything, the greatest works we do are often the ones that have some of the big challenges involved. And at some point during the big challenge, we have a thought, do I want to keep doing this? This is hard. And that's the moment when these 7 virtues come into play. That's the moment when you say, yeah, it is hard and I might fail, but I'm going to do it anyways. That's the moment when you say, what rewards will motivate me to keep going? That's the moment when you say, is there anything I can change about my environment, about who's around me, about where I do this, about can I change my space in any way? Can I change the music here in any way? Like, what things can I change about my environment that will help me keep doing this? That's the moment when we say, there might be people like Jesus, when he brought people back from the dead, like when he brought Jairus' daughter back from the dead, he changed the environment. Like there were a bunch of people there that were laughing at him when he said that she sleeps and she'll come alive again. People laughed at him, so he had all those people leave, and he only kept around him the people who were supportive. And then he did it. He followed through and brought her back to life. And so it's really important to what do you need to change about your environment so you're surrounded by the people and the other things in the environment that are going to help you go forward with this. In those moments where we're discouraged, we're like, can I see this through? That's when it's good to remember your purpose. Why are you doing it? How does this contribute to the goodness of how does this contribute to the greater good for other people? That's the moment. Those are the times when it's important, in those hard times, it's important to just focus on the present moment. Let yourself be curious about what good might come of this. Create rhythms. Create rhythms in your life that maybe it's like, okay, this hard thing that I want to do, I need to do it over, I'm going to do it in a rhythm, every day at this time is when I'm going to do it, or something like that. Get some kind of rhythm going, or maybe you literally use rhythms people that sometimes people that do labor have some kind of, they do labor to a beat, right? People that row, the people that used to row the boats, right? They'd have a drum person that would hit a drum every time they're supposed to row to keep them rowing, right? Or the people that are military marcher people that do that too. They'd march to a beat to keep them marching. But they also did the same thing in ancient Japan with the rice. When they were harvesting rice, they would do music with a strong beat to motivate people to and every time the people would pull the rice out of the ground while singing to the beat to keep them going strong and fast. So, because they had to harvest the rice quickly, because if they don't harvest it quickly enough, it'll rot, right? So they have to, and then they don't get all the harvest out of it. So that's why they would do that. You could keep them going. So maybe there's some kind of rhythm that you can create that you can do your work to that'll keep it going. And there's the other. So there's be present. How can you be present? How do you focus on the present moment instead of worrying about the future? Just focus on the present moment. These are the principles that'll help you get through those times. And the earth, according to the way that God ordained it, the earth is in a season right now that begins right about now and will go for the next 28 days or so. For the next 28 days or so, the earth is in a season where all of the energies of the earth, in the northern hemisphere, the southern hemisphere is in a different season, but the northern hemisphere of the earth is in a season where the energies of the earth are focused on this principle of staying motivated, the 7 principles that make it up. And so this is during this time, if you're focused on growing in this principle, you'll find it more easy to grow in it because all the energies of the earth and all the angels are focused on this principle right now. And so if you go with that energy, it's like swimming with the current, and you'll grow personally more quickly if you focus on these 7 principles during the next 28 days or so. And then after the 20 days are over, the energy of the earth, the energy of the northern hemisphere of the earth will shift again, and it'll be time to focus on a different principle, which will be the principle of knowledge and understanding. And this is a predictable cycle that the earth goes through. Genesis says that the stars were put in the sky for signs and for seasons. And if you pay attention to the stars and to the message of the stars that were put there, the stars are like a calendar. And when you see how the stars change throughout the year, there's messages in the stars about which virtue it's the season for. And the stars can tell us that right now the season is for this principle of staying motivated. I think that's all I got today. If anyone else has anything to add or any questions to ask, go ahead and put those in the chat and I'll address them. I'm just gonna kind of stay here for just a second and just enjoy the outside where I am while I wait to see if anyone posts anything. But otherwise, you can go ahead and leave and enjoy this next season. Goodbye.